I tell people that I'm an anarchist. A lot of people think that means chaos. Anarchy doesn't mean chaos. I tell people I'm an anarchist and they think that means I don't have any respect for other human beings. Anarchy doesn't mean you don't have any respect for other beings or their property. I tell people I'm an anarchist and they think that means I think there should be no rules on how we should live morally among each other. And that's not what anarchy means either. Anarchy means that there are no masters and there are no slaves. And that's what true freedom is. You know, when people hear that, they say, well, if you don't like it here and you don't like the way shit is being run here, why don't you leave? And you know what my answer to people like that always is? It's the same thing. I'm not going fucking anywhere because I'm right and you're not.
I'm back with the podcast. Last time was in July, so I'm glad to be able to register another podcast episode. And well, today I have quite a few guests. The topic will be, something that I feel it's important to clarify for everybody, because there's been a lot of obfuscation of the term, a lot of misunderstandings, and people tend to get this concept quite wrong. And the powers that be do everything in their power to keep it this way, to muddy the waters. And the topic is gonna be anarchy. We're gonna define the term and hopefully debunk quite a few lies that are being told in the mainstream, and not just in the mainstream, about it. And so let me introduce my guests for today. So I'll start with the man that started this whole podcast series from episode 1, Mark Devlin. So Mark Devlin, thank you very much for having been here. I know this is not the usual topic that you usually discuss in your interviews when you are interviewed on other people's shows. So I hope this will be a nice diversion.
Well, yeah, hello. Good to be with you guys. And I welcome any opportunity to get away from my regular material, to be honest with you, because I spend most of my time talking about music industry shenanigans, and I do like to get into other things. So I'm very grateful that the topic today is outside of that, because you can have too much of talking about it, trust me.
Okay, so as you said, you usually talk about the music industry. You are a researcher in that field. Regarding the various manipulations that occur, especially at a societal level, that the powers that shouldn't be, what the powers that shouldn't be used to manipulate the masses, and that comprises also the music industry and pop culture. And you are a researcher in that field, and
sure.
So I'll introduce the other guests, always from the UK, and Nathan Riddett. So Nathan, thank you too for being here. Nathan is natural law teacher there in the UK, and for everybody else too. He has a YouTube channel where you can find his natural law presentations and his other presentations that he's doing all across the United Kingdom. So Nathan, thank you very much for being here with us once again.
It was a pleasure, Francesco. Thank you ever so much for having me on, to be alongside the other guests as well. Should be a good topic. Let's clear up some of the obfuscation, as you said, because this is an important one.
Yeah, sure is. And finally, another recurring guest of this podcast, Ivan Oyola Jr. from Phoenix, Arizona. In fact, he is also known as Ivan from Phoenix. So Ivan, welcome, and I'm glad that you're here too.
I'm glad to be here. This is my first kind of roundtable thing. So yeah, this is an honor. And I guess I'm the only one outside of that North Europe kind of part of the world here. So yeah, that kind of shows we got a little bit of a United Nations kind of thing, international thing going on then.
Yeah. To be honest, I started looking for people from continental Europe, other people, but as I told you last time, I wasn't successful, so that's a failure on my part, I guess.
Well, Greta Thunberg might want to come on. We've got a United Nations gathering here.
Sure, yeah. Why didn't I thought about that immediately? So well, that's a shame. So well.
Well,
yes.
Today is a good date to do this, Francesco, because
okay.
We've settled on the 22nd of November, 2211, or as Ivan and his friends would put it, 1122, because Americans, screw up their dates. But basically, the 22 and the 11 obviously adds up to 33, and it's an important Masonic number, and it's the anniversary of the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah.
It's also the anniversary of Dave McGowan, the author and researcher. He passed away on the 22nd of November 2015, coincidentally. So it is quite an ominous date for us to be doing this and talking about conspiratorial matters.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite an important date. And well, if I may say something before we start, it's a date when America was shocked. An entire country was traumatized at a societal level, and this also happens, years later on 2001. We all know about that, and but in that case was because of the killing of a political leader,
Killing of the king.
Killing of the king. That's also a ritual. But hopefully, today we'll say that next time something like this will happen, don't be traumatized because I don't know if it's really worth it to be traumatized because a political leader has been taken out, generally speaking. So
well, that kind of segues perfectly what Mark brought up and the topic of today, this whole anarchy thing. If we really break it down to the etymology of no masters, no rulers, that shows how those traumatic events, the death of a king that has everyone under that mind control of that ruler, our leader, he gets sacrificed and everyone's in mourning. It creates a traumatic effect and all this stuff. When that right there sheds a light on how mind controlled everyone is, how under the anti anarchist mindset everyone is, that everyone needs to believe in the ruler, and when that ruler is taken away, there's all this pain and suffering and trauma when it really shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
And isn't it ironic that the very same day, 22nd of November 1963, was the date on which Aldous Huxley passed away? Notorious social engineer, eugenicist, architect of the CIA's MK Ultra, or co-architect, all about mind control. And he just happens to check out on the same day as Kennedy. And obviously the news of Kennedy overshadowed news of his death. And the writer C.S. Lewis of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe fame from Oxford, England, also passed away on that very same day, 22nd of November 63. Nobody tends to remember the other two in the shadow of Kennedy.
Mhm.
Yeah. Pretty knowledgeable guy, C.S. Lewis. I didn't know about Aldous Huxley. That was the same day that he died too. So
supposedly his wife or his mistress poisoned him or gave him an overdose of LSD. So the story goes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Who knows?
a little touch on the conspiracy side. Isn't it funny, or not funny, haha, but funny, like, wow, that a lot of major deaths, kind of two of them happen at the same time, and people tend to forget that. You mentioned Kennedy and Huxley. So remember Michael Jackson and Farrah Fawcett the same day. It's kind of every once in a while you get these duels that pass at the same time. It's just head scratching kind of thing.
Yeah, and then McGowan, years later, the very same day. That's a very strange one.
Yeah, McGowan was on top of many things. He exposed lots of stuff too. So regarding even the music scene.
Right, and he was hinting at some of the assassination stuff too, and that's, I think, along with the Lincoln thing, that's something that he was going to start, delving into. But he had touched a lot on. I used to hear him a lot on Maria Heller show, and he was touching a lot on Vietnam and the research in there about the soldiers coming back from Vietnam and all the serial killings picking up here. So there's a lot of connections all over the place with the researchers. Like I always say, you pull on one string, and you end up connecting to so many other things.
That's right.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be doing the work I'm doing now if it wasn't for McGowan setting me off on this path, particularly when it comes to uncovering the family backgrounds of all these celebrities and stuff. It was his work that got me into that style of research. So certainly he left an important legacy behind.
Yeah, sure. And I guess we can get into the main topic of discussion for this evening. So I was actually thinking about titling this episode, Anarchy, Anarchy, Total Chaos, or True World Order. So the answer is pretty clear in my mind. I hope after this one gets released on the internet, also some more people will have that mental clarity about this issue. So, let's start defining the term, the actual term anarchy. So, Nathan, maybe would you like to do that?
I'll step up. Thank you. So I think we all know between us that it means without masters, and archon, without masters. So it's literally freedom. And but over a period of time, it's been drip fed to everybody that freedom equals chaos. So anarchy is chaos. So that's perfect mind control, because people associate freedom with chaos. So I think we need to do maybe we need to create a meme or something, where control is chaos, anarchy is freedom. So that's the true definition of the word. But obviously it doesn't come without. Can you still hear me? I've just had a notification come up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't mean no rules. So for true order, we need to embody the two pillars of enlightenment. Do no harm and take no shit. So it's just true freedom, and obviously with that comes true or full responsibility. Total personal responsibility, which I think keeps a lot of people in fear, because they don't want to take responsibility for a lot of things in their lives. So they obviously look to be nannied by the state, which is another bit of mind today, where they want people to be like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd say starting from the origin, the Greek origin on the term is you have the prefix "an" meaning without, and the other archy. It comes
Archon,
from archos or archon. That means basically leader or ruler. So it's without rulers. And as we said, without rulers does not mean without rules.
I've got a picture here. No masters, no slaves. Freedom.
Yeah. And the problem, as we said, is, you know, many people associate not having a ruler with people doing just whatever the hell they want, and they will start going nuts on each other, start eating each other, killing each other, raping
Yeah, and it's drip fed over time. You know, I think, you know, the Purge movie, the Purge Anarchy, is a great example of how they associate it with chaos. And, you know, Mark, we would probably talk about, you know, the punk music and how, you know, they kind of make it crazy and kind of violent, and everyone's got the anarchy badges and all that kind of stuff.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a controlled narrative.
Yeah.
So anybody?
No, go ahead, Mark. Because I just said that it's a hijacking of it, and you said it's controlled narrative.
Sure. No, go ahead, man. Say what you wanted to say.
Oh no. Well, I think he addressed it to you. Go ahead. the punk scene.
Well, yeah, the punk scene presents the approved version of anarchy, doesn't it? Similar to the Purge movie, which is putting forward this idea that it's all about chaos and just random, haphazard behavior. The point is, we don't know what a society would be like with no rulers, because as far back as anyone can remember, going back who knows how many generations, all we've ever had is governmental systems telling us what to do and how to behave. So we don't know what kind of situation we would have if ever we were to overthrow all kinds of rulers. I think it's probably worth a try. It's probably worth humanity seeing how it would be able to govern its own behaviors without government rulers. Whether that day will ever come, I have no idea. But it's probably worth a try at some point, I would suggest.
We can't get much more chaotic than the world we're living in at the moment.
Well, exactly. You know, people say, oh my God, there would be chaos in society, as opposed to what? As opposed to the peace and the stability that we now have, right? I mean, the last time I checked, there was human slavery, there was war, there was famine, there was injustice, there was pedophilia everywhere, there was rape, there was murder, there was madness going on all over the world. So anything that offers an alternative to that, as I say, might be worth a try.
Yeah, definitely. And most of the people in prisons, you know, they haven't done anything wrong. They haven't hurt anybody or stolen anything. You know, but they've been locked up for some arbitrary law, you know, because we buy into this moral relativistic BS. So, you know.
Like your shirt says, obey. They had a failure to obey. That's why they're incarcerated.
Exactly. If I may,
which means freedom, which is freedom. Hey, you're free to obey what they tell you to obey.
Yeah.
You know?
You're
so
free
it's
to
all
do,
a mind game. Free to do as they tell you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If I may say something, maybe we haven't, maybe in Western society especially, we haven't seen the type of chaos that we might need to see to learn something. I don't know if you get if you get my meaning, because we are very, you know, cocooned and you know, in this dreamy state in this society where we have even even you know, poorer people, except, you know, those who live, you know, under a bridge or on the street. You know, they still have their football match on Sunday. They still have maybe even their cable TV, maybe.
Well, that's what I call the house slavery. That's why it's difficult for people to see the problems, you know, because the slavery over here in the Western society, you know, hey, You have the 24-hour drive-throughs, the SUVs, the, hundreds of channels on TV, satellite, cable, internet. Life is good. That's freedom, but basically a house slavery.
Yeah,
so nobody wants to rock that boat,
exactly.
And that's provided by the quote-unquote rulers. Even though people don't see it that way, that's the corporations that control you, the banks that say, here, you can make $30, $50, $80,000 a year, house slave, and have a good life. See, money's good, the banks are good, corporations are good, materialism's good, and the government's good because they let you, they pass these laws that say, you should have, all these knickknacks and whatever, So I don't know, that's how I see it. It's the house slavery again, because what does anarchy, what's anarchy against? Masters. So if you got masters, you have slaves. But if you have house slaves thinking they're part of the master, like, hey, life is good. What anarchy? What are you talking about? We're free. Look, I have all my materialistic stuff. Life is good. That's how
I don't know.
You get a mobile phone as well if you vote for Obama, didn't you? Vote for this slave master and you get a free mobile phone.
And a free vaccine.
Yeah, or over here, vote for these slave masters and you'll get the citizenship income, as they call it. Basically, a basic income if you are, if you meet certain specifics, whatever the rules are. I don't even know. So,
and what Ivan was saying is, as well, I think most people around the world have just got their head up their rear end. They don't want to face the truth of their slavery. They want to think that they're free, but it's living in an illusion because, they're in fear.
I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what it would take, Nathan, for the people of the UK to rise up and stand up for their rights and say, we've had enough, no more. Because I'm convinced there are nations in the world which, if the people had been through the mockery and just the straight humiliation that British people have, they would have risen up and taken to the streets long ago. So I'm talking about things like, the Jimmy Savile scandal, where we came to discover that the BBC had been employing this prodigious paedophile for decades. And pedophilia goes deep into the BBC. It goes deep into government. There's connections going into the royal family. We've just had this farcical debacle with Prince Andrew, supposedly defending himself regarding his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. And he went on BBC Newsnight and was blatantly lying. Is there anyone that was taken in by his pathetic act in that interview? It's obvious that he's guilty as hell. It's obvious that he's very deeply implicated with Epstein. And yet people in this country just seem to be accepting it. Nobody seems to be getting mad about it. Nobody's demanding the overthrow of the royal family. Nobody's demanding at the end of the monarchy. What is it going to take, and where is people's line in the sand? I mean, as a fellow Brit, do you feel that people in this country have just been so dumbed down and just so
Stockholm syndrome
that they don't even have a line in the sand?
Stockholm syndrome, I think, is a good description of it. But they're just so inured, and it's almost like, well, it's always been this way. So, it's like an acceptance of paedophilia and this kind of stuff through the royal bloodlines. But you're absolutely right, Mark. And well, America, and we've just been to the Open Minds conference, as we know that, it's going on in Ireland as well. So, all of these child protection services that are so-called, it's going on all around the world. These children being funneled into this satanic freaking dark occult.
Italy. So we have Rome with the Vatican. So
what you always hear from people is, well, what can you do? There's nothing we can do. That's the attitude that seems to prevail. People just fall into this mentality of helplessness. And
maybe if you took the football away and the beer.
Individually, there's very little that we can do when we stand on our own. But coming together and uniting and pooling our resources, we can do a hell of a lot if we are prepared to stand up collectively. But people have just been atomized and made to feel small and alone and helpless. And that's why you always hear, well, yeah, I know pedophilia is everywhere. I know the government is corrupt as hell, but what can you do?
Yeah,
That's
and
the
that's
attitude
know,
that prevails.
yeah.
I see with what you just said there, Mark, I heard two different things that are both together the pun intended, the cause and the cure. Mark gets that. That's the name of his upcoming book. That's in
Thank
there.
you for the plug.
Yeah, people talk about, well, what can you do? What are you going to do? See, that's the problem. Because very from the beginning of Mark Passio's, podcast and stuff, from what I picked up from him, was you need to be in balance with your thoughts, emotions, and actions. And see how Mark mentions right here, Devlin, that people, well, what are you going to do? They're jumping to the actions. They're not really focusing on the emotions, what got them there, or their thoughts. Not realizing that thinking like an anarchist, no master, no ruler, will lead you to the proper emotions of anger because there's wrong going on, then leading you to what to do. But people are asking, well, what you going to do? What are you going to do? Without even realizing their thinking is improper, because they still think the government's going to help or solve it, the church, or the school, the education system, the finances. See, so that's why that trinity is so important, because everyone's focusing on one thing or this thing or that thing without comprehending that there's a step to it, and as a whole everything needs to come together. So the cause and the cure, they're right there together, but people have to pull that apart, like I think pretty much we've done, and it is up to each individual. However, each individual is what makes up the collective. So it's that yin yang thing. Each individual has to do their own little work of aligning their thoughts, emotions, and actions, so that then we get the critical mass that has thoughts, emotion, and actions in line, and then moves forward. Because as long as people are asking, well, what are you going to do without working on the other two parts, we're really not going anywhere.
Yeah, and that goes to my next point that I've called "Where's the catch?" So yeah, we can we can talk about anarchy in a very sort of sterile way. So okay, anarchy, okay, no masters, everybody on his own, everybody for himself, And I say, where's the catch? And the catch is you have to learn certain things. You have to comprehend certain things, come to the understanding of certain concepts that are, the basis for a civilized life without rulers. Learning pretty much morality, moral law, and rights, and what rights are. What are the rights of each individual that are the same for every individual, and what are not rights. So what we will call natural law, but that learning natural law too, but that comes with another obfuscation of the term. So
it's a loaded phrase, yeah.
So, but anyway, even if you don't want to call it natural law, you can call it, morality, moral law.
And those comprehensions, to use the word that Ivan uses, I notice he doesn't use the word understand anymore, which is a good stance to take, because you don't stand under the authority of, these words. So Ivan talks about comprehending. There has to be a comprehension of natural law and morality and right action versus wrong action collectively among the people of a nation, if anarchy is ever going to work in any kind of effective way. Because if we went into a situation where we suddenly threw off rulers overnight and people were still in the mental and spiritual and emotional state that they are now, where they've got this dependence on other people doing stuff for them, then it would be a pretty chaotic outcome.
Yeah, and that would result, and people will call that anarchy, and they do, even in demonstrations like we have here in Barcelona, that whole thing, that whole independentist thing, and over in France with the yellow vests, they call that anarchy.
Any riot, they'll label it anarchy.
Exactly. And no, that's not anarchy. That's actually leading to leading to another enslaver ruling over you, because from chaos they will bring their order, not the true order. So
yeah, and you guys are bang on. We need to get our natural law rhetoric right. I wouldn't say it's each man for himself, like you said, Francesco, though, because I liken it to working. If we align with natural law, then we're all working together. And I say in some of my presentations that much like each individual has got a trillion cells all working alongside to make the miracle that is each individual.
Yeah, I was saying, the things that people think about when they heard the term anarchy. So every man for himself, but no,
right, sure, sorry.
I know, yeah,
okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and we like you guys saying, we need to know what rights are, and when we know this, so we can say no, but because you're absolutely right, because we collectively don't know what a right is. We've got
to have the right grounding before we go. We're a long way from people on a collective basis being ready in that sense.
A long way. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of work to do.
That's right.
Okay, so
I think that leads to kind of having re-education centers, like actual education, not indoctrination centers. So, again, anybody that talks with me or knows me knows I'm a huge movie buff, and there's so much truth is in films, and a lot of obfuscation occurs in films where they twist things around. But very simply put, in like one of the Star Wars movies, how Yoda says you have to unlearn what you have learned. And again, that's to that first part of your thoughts. We have so much crap that's been put into our minds as a species that all that has to be taken out. And not only just taken out, at first recognized. People have to be brought to the point to question what they know, what they believe, what they think they know. Because they can know all kinds of stuff and think it's true, because the books in the universities written by these dark occultists or sophists, say so. So, hey, capitalism is good because look, 1 + 1 = 2, and the more you have, the more you get. And so it's true. It's like, no, you have to unlearn what you have learned and question what you have learned. That's one of the starting points. And that's what I think, is a foundation, is a lot of us throughout the world that know this stuff to hold our meetups or schools or whatever, and start sharing that information just to start that path. Because like Mark said, getting to the point where people are asking, well, what are you going to do? That's way over here. And we need to start way over here at the beginning of question what you know, work on yourself first, unlearn what you have learned. And then eventually everything falls into place about getting to what needs to be done.
Yeah.
It's like going back to school, grown-ups going back to school. And really, natural law should be taught in schools.
Yes.
And who really could have any kind of objection to the difference between right and wrong behavior being taught to children? I mean, this transcends religion. It's not like Christians are going to get upset about it or Muslims are going to get upset, because when it comes to morality, it encompasses all religious teachings and all cultures. It applies to everyone in humanity. And, who really would have a problem with 5-year-olds being taught what is acceptable behavior and what isn't, what causes a harm to others and what doesn't? It speaks volumes that this stuff isn't taught in schools to kids. And just imagine a society where an entire generation has been raised on these teachings from the very earliest age. That would present a very different play out of events in society, I would suggest.
Totally, yeah. The first building blocks, that's how reality is structured, right? So the knowledge leads to the behavior, collectively manifests into the world we've got. But we kind of do teach our kids, though, sticks and stones. Don't hurt, don't lie, don't steal. We teach our kids, so we know in our hearts natural law. But we also, the obfuscation comes in with, but the police are here for our good. The police are here to protect, that's, and respect authority.
Pay your taxes.
And let's, most people, let's be honest about it, most people are decent people. If all of a sudden there was no police in society, most society wouldn't change their behavior. but people have got it in their heads that it would be chaos and pandemonium, you know, because of the control system, television programming, and through the media and the music, you know,
and the likes of the Purge.
You kind of lead into an interesting point here, Nathan. Conversation I had, or discussion leading to almost an argument I had at work this past week with an individual. We were talking about, here in the U.S., how they're trying to pass these laws for background checks and anyone showing any mental issues, not to allow them to have access to firearms and stuff like that. So I brought up the point, isn't it interesting how no one brings up the fact that you never hear of a mass shooting at a gun show, you know, because everyone has guns there. You only hear about mass shootings in gun-free zones. And then the thought kept going. It's like, okay, wait a minute. What's the rationale behind that? What's the thinking behind that? And it's not that people respect police, is that people comprehend. Don't mess around with someone that has a gun. So the gun or the weapon or the firearm, something that can harm you physically, that's what keeps people in check, you know, theoretically. So it's not the police, it's the weapons. So when you think about a gun show and why no one pretty much commits any crimes there, or at least mass shootings, 'cause I bet you, there's a little theft here and there or whatever, but we really don't hear about it. Armed people, it's the guns. So that's the mind control right there, that again, shift that over to the other side. The obfuscation occurs where only government, police, authorities should have arms because that keeps people in check. Not the people, not the anarchist, not the person that wants to be left alone with his AR-15 at home. So if anyone tries to break in, they can defend themselves. Nope, that's part of the mind control. Don't protect yourself, call 911. So all these are little variables, all that go to the same, topic we're trying to communicate here with people. So, it expresses itself in films, movies, music and all this stuff, politics and all that. But in real world events, just like that, the armed population or disarmed population and the armed military, all of that are aspects of what anarchy is, represents,
Yeah.
Slaves don't own guns, though, do they?
Yeah, exactly right.
Exactly. You're opening up a big can of worms if you talk about, guns in Europe.
Yeah.
In America too, but here you
True
just
freedom. True freedom.
Well, America's pretty unique when it comes to gun ownership in the world, isn't it? Because I think British people have a problem grasping the concept that weapon ownership leads to personal freedom because of the way we've been conditioned. It may be the same in Italy, Francesco, I don't know. But British people, generally speaking, I think, would look at Americans as a nation of gun nuts that just love shooting guns off everywhere, and they don't grasp the self-defense aspect of it and the fact that an armed nation is prepared for cases of tyranny which may come down upon them from governments. British people don't really grasp that. I think Nathan would agree with that. And I don't know how it is in Italy. Maybe it's the same there.
It's pretty much the same. The only difference is we have more types of guns. ARs, AKs, they are allowed, but in England there's much more restrictions. But anyway, people, even some gun owners actually think that but the American laws are too much. They're too excessive. They don't grasp the whole. Why it's actually important to have the right to possess and even to carry a firearm.
Probably the same in most countries outside of America, I would imagine. And that includes Canada, just over the border from the US.
Exactly.
I think attitudes there are very different to American attitudes when it comes to gun ownership.
Right there. Yeah, a lot of nations or countries outside of the US, they have some of that cognitive dissonance. So, they're thinking freedom, but then thinking you don't have the right to defend yourself, or weapons, firearms, so it's like, yeah, we should be free, but, how can you free yourself with a gun? Because that kills people. So there's a cognitive dissonance there. And then talking about America referred to as gun nuts and all that, again, that's, I think, another aspect of that house slavery, you know. So here in America, the house slavery is so good that the slaves can have some guns. And see, so that's how other parts of the world might see it. How can the slaves have the guns? And that's how the masters here see it, like, shit, we let the slaves have too many guns or for too long. We got to start curbing that. See, so from both sides, the thing about the house slaves being able to arm themselves, it's it's a little bit of an enlightenment to the rest of the world. Like, look, you should be able to defend yourself too. But then from the top, it's also a threat that they're kind of like, damn, we let these guys have too many guns for too long, so we got to curb that away. So it's kind of interesting dynamic to be in the middle, you know.
Yeah. And
I think in Switzerland, in Europe, gun laws are quite lax, and you're allowed to have firearms in Switzerland, and they've got one of the lowest crime rates going. So as soon as people start going on about, the crime in America, gun crimes, well, let's look at knife crimes in the UK, and that kind of violent crimes, not just focus on gun crimes, and that doesn't change.
Yeah, because that goes back to the natural law, do no harm, take no shit. When, if we comprehend whether it's a knife, a gun, a howitzer, a nuclear weapon, you comprehend you don't harm others unless it's in self-defense.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the key, number one, the thought, the knowledge. If people don't have that, then like, hey, it throws everything else off. The rest of the equation doesn't pan out.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as I was telling you recently, Ivan, even in Switzerland now they've passed gun restrictions following the EU directives. And they have a referendum, and the majority, I think 63.5%, voted in favor of gun restrictions. So even Switzerland,
there's that
Where
cognitive
would we
dissonance.
be without the EU?
Exactly.
There's that cognitive dissonance again I was talking about, right? Some place like Switzerland that didn't you tell me they left the EU, right? They're not part of it, but yet they're going to abide by whatever EU suggestions, gun law. So again, cognitive dissonance right there too.
Nobody mentioned Brexit, please. Not the B
You
word.
just did.
Oh,
I know.
Yeah, we already went off on a little bit of a tangent here talking about this, but I'd like to actually define what is a right. Generally speaking, that includes the right of self-defense, the right of owning and carrying on yourself when you go out of your home, the most adequate items for personal protection. So, what is a right? Who wants to define what a right is?
I'll simplify it. I mean, simply put, a right is an action that, when taken, causes no harm to any other living being. That's it.
That's right.
Or theft. Yeah.
Harm or loss, to another living sentient being. That's it.
Yeah. So how many?
Not that difficult.
Yeah. No. Exactly. But it needs to be. We talk about re-education.
Sure.
And it needs to be stated,
fleshed out.
Yeah. Again and again.
Well, this is why I say that it should be taught in schools, because literally a 5-year-old is capable of understanding this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You do not undertake a behavior that causes a harm or a loss to another. The end. 5-year-olds should be able to comprehend this, but apparently nations of grown adults can't.
Yeah, they do a red and green choice at the school that my son goes to. So it is basically they're teaching natural law, but then you're putting people into like double think by then telling them to respect authority and do what they're told by authority figures. But expanding on what rights are, I guess it all comes down to property rights. We need to know what we own and what we don't own. So we don't own other people's bodies, that their possessions, their rights to be left alone in their houses. Don't lie, because that's the theft of the truth, and it's wrong by definition. So it all comes down to property rights, and so we need to know what we own and what we don't own. And it is really simple, but 99% 9% of people have bought into moral relativism and authoritarian slave think. So there's a lot of negative knowledge, not in both senses, in that they've bought a lot of stuff which is incorrect, so they need to then get into positive knowledge.
That's where the cognitive dissonance comes in, when they don't get rid of that negative knowledge and start bringing in that positive knowledge, and then they start having that happen. The positive and negative are jiving, and they're not coming out ahead, because first they got to get rid of that negative knowledge so that positive knowledge, they have a sound foundation, and that's what's lacking.
I think most people, like I said before, are typically good people. So they wouldn't want to think of their masters to be nefarious pedophiles. It's like, look at 9/11, and most people that buy the mainstream version of it, we think they don't want to see it as chaos sorcery or a false flag event, because they're decent people and they wouldn't do it themselves, or they wouldn't want to think that their masters, their beloved rulers, would do that to their own people. But like I said, we need to pull our heads out of our rear ends and then face the facts and face the truth.
It does come down to what you mentioned earlier, the personal responsibility that is brought on by a recognition of what's really going on in the world. Because if you acknowledge that 9/11 was carried out by aspects of the American government, for example, if you acknowledge that the British government and those of most of the rest of the world is absolutely infested with pedophiles, then the implication is that collectively we need to do something about this. We need to take responsibility for it. And people don't want to do that. I would agree with you that people are inherently generally good, and I think deep down they do know the difference between right and wrong behavior, what is acceptable and what isn't. There will be exceptions to that rule. You'll always have psychopaths and sociopaths, but they're a small minority. Most people know what's right and what's wrong. They see all this stuff going on. They hear about it, but they don't want to have to step up and take that responsibility, because it involves rocking their world. It involves stepping out of their comfort zone. And most people just want to be left alone to live their lives the way they need to. If they've got a family to raise, if they've got kids, they just want to take care of them. They just want to keep holding that job down and keep the mortgage paid, keep the bills paid. And they don't want to step outside of that familiarity. So that's a big problem, a big hurdle that we need to overcome, because most people are in that mind state, I would think.
Yeah. And,
well said, mate. Yep.
And also regarding morality and rights, there's, regarding the obfuscation that goes on in there, most people think morality is, is taught by the church, for example, and what the church said was that's moral,
and the law books, whatever is written down.
Yeah, or whatever is written in the law books, so there's also a great confusion regarding what morality and what a right actually are. So many people think morality, you are immoral if you are a woman and you go out with a miniskirt. So they say, "Oh, that's immoral." I say, "What?"
Or you're not a taxpayer.
And this is
yeah, or you don't pay your taxes. You're an immoral being because you don't want to have money stolen for under the threat of violence from you. So
I forgot what I was just about to say.
People criticize Bono for being a tax dodger. There's actually nothing wrong with avoiding paying tax. There's plenty of other things you can find wrong with Bono if you want to, sling some dirt at that dude. But isn't it interesting how he is held up as a tax dodger and people think he's immoral because of that and not because of all the other stuff he gets up to?
Right. Yeah. That isn't that one of the logical fallacies? I forgot which one it is, but yeah, they attack this bad aspect when it's like, wait a minute, this person's actually doing the right thing for not paying taxes, avoiding, personal theft, but they want to attack them for the actual bad things they're doing. So it's like selective, blame. But as long as it maintains the whole false, narrative thing of like, well, what we say is right is actually wrong, but since we said it's right, and what we say is wrong, it's actually right. So yeah, it's again more of the obfuscation, cognitive dissonance, keeping people off balance. It's all part of
hanging out with Bill Gates and vaccinating kids in Africa. Good. Avoiding paying taxes. Bad.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, 100%. What I was going to say is, and we've got a lot of like social justice warriors and all this, and this is
in Ireland.
Yeah. But this is
found out.
This is vapid anger, and if people actually knew right from wrong, they got their natural law rhetoric right, then they would be using righteous indignation and getting angry about things actually matter. There's so much of this in society where people's frustrations and they're focused in the wrong directions. We can all see there's a lot of injustice going on in the world, but where most people don't actually know what a right is, they focus it on something really vapid. If only people got up get my words out, sorry, but angry about what's going on in the world, and like what Mark's been saying about the pedophiles in government and all the rest of it, and the order followers, supporting order followers, to go off to war, and we need to go all the way with this as well. And anarchy, I would say that's also veganism, because this is not supporting domination of humans and not supporting domination of animals. Because it's the animals' lives, right? We shouldn't be taking their lives when it's unnecessary.
I just heard, lots of indignation and outrage at your comment on veganism. lots of heads are exploding. So.
Well, you need to just deal with the truth, suck it up, go all the way with it. Yeah,
that's right.
Take it back to the slavery thing, what you're just talking about. The house slavery thing. That's why people don't go into that righteous indignation, because like, wait a minute, some of this bad stuff benefits me, even though it's negative or bad, but all the materialism and, continuing a form of enslavement of society, but I'm a house slave. So I don't want to do the right thing if it's going to change the way I live or change my world or change my environment. So let's not go there. Let's blame this person because they were talking about, called a him a her, or her a him, or they didn't address him by the proper, noun, pronoun. Yeah, so that's what happens. House slavery is very powerful. People are very comfortable with the way they live and don't want to, rock the boat or bring the house of cards down.
And talking about that him and her stuff, that's the breeding out of rebels in society as well. There's a lot of that going on. The toxic masculinity bullshit. People that are actually standing up, they want freedom. Oh, that's toxic masculinity, and and all of this demasculinization stuff that's going on.
Kind of
a phrase that came straight out of Tavistock. You can be sure.
Yeah.
That can be interpreted as either a hijacking of or an artificial form of anarchy. Because it's not for the proper right or correct freedom of people, from enslavement. It's just freedom now from control of what you can say and think and how you can feel. It's like, wait, that's kind of a personal thing of my emotions, my feelings are hurt and all that. So, so you see what I'm saying? They kind of turn to, bring it down a notch, quite a few notches, to where it's about people's feelings and how they want to express themselves, but it's not, inclusive to liberating humanity, ending slavery. So that's, I think, kind of a hijacking, or where we get the woke thing from, or the social justice warriors is like, see, change is happening. Yeah, people are waking up. No, that's being hijacked and misdirected to, places that kind of matter a little bit, but in the big picture, it really makes no difference. It just fuels more the divide and conquer. Oh, you don't want to call him or her or her you're part of the problem. Wait, I don't care about that. I'm trying to end slavery, end free humanity from all this other. Oh, well, no, we don't want to go there. See, and that's another part of the control mechanism.
Yeah, keeping that moral relativism going as well. They're always selling that. divert.
I made a
away
comment
from-
on somebody's Facebook thread this week that if Aldous Huxley was still alive, we mentioned him earlier, you know, it's the anniversary of his death today, but can you imagine if Aldous Huxley was around in 2019 to see what is going on in society, the transgender agenda, transhumanism, artificial intelligence, that guy will be having multiple orgasms on the spot at everything that he tried to bring in, having come to fruition in these times. He would love it. You know, Brave New World finally comes to realization.
Yeah,
he's the author of Brave New World.
New World, yeah.
Everybody should read alongside 1984, but that maybe it's even more important because the world is going. We are living in 1984 right now. I dare say.
Perpetually, yeah.
And what they want to bring is Brave New World.
What amazes me, just to go back to something else that I mentioned earlier, is this whole situation with Prince Andrew, with this pathetic attempt at defending himself regarding his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. You know, it just amazes me that British people still tolerate the royal family as an institution. And I think this is another cultural difference between Britain and America. British people can't get their heads around American attitudes towards gun ownership. And I think American people just can't understand or comprehend why our nation still tolerates a royal family, subjugating the people, us serfs, and why people still put up with it. And not just put up with it, but many people still revere and worship the Queen and camp outside Buckingham Palace to catch a glimpse of her as she goes past in a gold-plated carriage, you know, and sit around watching her Christmas message every year. It's incredible to me that this still persists. We've had all these other changes to society at the hands of the social engineers, and yet one thing that hasn't changed in Britain is people still tolerate the presence of a royal family. It's a very strange thing to me, and it speaks volumes about attitudes towards slavery and subjugation.
Yeah, exactly.
Stockholm syndrome again. I mentioned that word, and but Mark, the tourist industry would just die a death, wouldn't it? No?
Well, yeah, I know. I know they associate with paedophiles, but they are good for tourism.
You know,
I mean, nobody would come to London. What is there in London for people to come and see, if not, to wave at the Queen? There's nothing here for people.
No,
Stonehenge, forget it. Who would come? Who would come and see that?
Yeah, the lack of the monarchy just completely ruin all tourism. You know, like in France, you know, the view from the Eiffel Tower would be ruined if they didn't have a monarchy, or the Taj Mahal. You know. Yeah.
The problem is probably what many Americans maybe don't know. It's I don't know if the monarchy is not present in America. I think it's present also. There's also an American monarchy, if you will.
While Mark was talking, I was thinking of here in America, that cognitive dissonance among a certain amount of people, that how the hell can they still have a queen and royalty? That's so old fashioned. But don't say anything against my president. I voted for him. I support my president. Like, wait a minute, you're saying the same thing,
man,
different descriptive word. I mean, it's the same thing.
Hey, monarchies are like animal products, guys. Nobody needs them.
That's right. Surplus to requirements.
You're not a true anarchist.
And people seem to fear the idea of Britain becoming a republic as well. You can have this conversation with people here, and you talk about, the Queen needs to go, the royal family needs to be abolished, and people say, well, imagine, you want a republic? Why would you want a republic? Why wouldn't you? Should we try it and see how it works? How about giving it a go? People just can't get their heads around any kind of alternative to the way things have always been. Normal, David Icke always says normal is only what we normally experience. So how about we change the norms? See how we get on.
Yeah, maybe they're afraid of Oliver Cromwell, I think.
There's a word that keeps resonating here. Fear pops up. Everybody, I think, has said it today. And that's one of the foundations here that keeps everyone enslaved is that fear, fear of change.
Fear of the unknown.
Fear of the unknown. Exactly. Yeah. So And again, Yoda, Star Wars, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. And what's going on in the world?
Which
A
leads
lot
to
of
government.
suffering.
Yeah,
There you
and yeah, and Dune, the Dune novels. Fear is the mind killer, and as
Mhm.
Mark Passio says, fear is the freedom killer.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
and so since we've been a little bit on the topic of gun ownership and gun rights, I'd like to talk about what I call the basis for a civilized society. That is, non-aggression and the self-defense principle. So basically, we talk about, there's a catch when you say anarchy and when living without rulers and without masters and without slaves. And I think you have to abide these basic two principles, non-aggression first of all, but then there's the self-defense in case the other one, the first one, is violated. So
Yeah, that to me always leads to the disconnect from nature. Humanity. Like you take Bush Senior's quote from, what was it, 91, living under the rulership of law and not the law of the jungle.
yeah,
So,
1990, I think.
NLP speech.
yeah, so that whole thing about man's law, that's the law he was talking about, and natural law, law of the jungle, that's basically God's law. That's nature. That's the earth. Is the jungle. You would think trees, grass, all that stuff, that's bad. Man's law is good. So that's that disconnect, I think, right there.
Mm.
And I lost my train of thought for a second there. What were you talking about? The self-defense, to be a nature. See, the disconnect humanity has from nature is that water, the oceans are calm, you can swim in it and all this. You have caves, rocks, and boulders where they're at. Everything in nature is nice. Trees, huge trees, everything exists nicely. However, when push comes to shove, you mess around with a boulder and it rolls over you and squashes you, that's, oh my God, it attacked me. No, it's that do no harm, take no shit. The boulder was fine by itself. You messed with it, it messed with you. Water can just settle and be cool and, provides life. But if, I don't know, something happens with water, it could squash you, it can drown you, it can kill you. The same thing with a tree, it helps with the air and all this. But if you have a bulldozer and you start, knocking down, forests and stuff, and you're standing in the way and those trees land on you, see, nature has a way of, providing life and helping life evolve, but then it could also cause harm and end life. And humanity's been detached from that we're the same way. We have to live in balance in that yin yang, that we create life, but we can also take away life. And we've kind of detached from that. And, government, they can kill and do everything, for our own good, but we can't do that for ourselves. We can't, be left alone and be fruitful, multiply and expand, love and all that. But when push comes to shove, do no harm, take no shit, stand our ground, say no to corporations, no to government, no to corrupt law enforcement, all this stuff. So I think that's part of that disconnect where anarchy comes in, no masters, no rulers. We rule ourselves internally, so I don't know. So just want to put that out there.
Yeah, and that's and I mean, again, you have popular culture and government school, indoctrination, that they are really at war with the self-defense principle, because even if they are alternative people that are looking for even in the alternative field, people that are going out looking for alternatives to the mainstream, they get a lot of non-aggression principle, but they also get a lot of
they don't get the self-defense principle.
Yeah, they get a lot.
It's all violence. It's all violence.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of people want to equate, the use of force in a defensive capacity to violence, to sheer violence. They say, well, if you react with the use of force against an aggression, you are acting, you are the same as the aggressor, and that's the big lie.
If you think about the way we entrain kids regarding the self-defense principle, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about, teaching natural law to 5-year-olds. if somebody's child came home from school and said, I'm being bullied, you know, this other kid keeps coming up to me and hitting me, I think most parents' advice to their child would be, well, hit them back. You know, don't put up with it, hit them back. So you would teach a child not to steal something from somebody, because that's wrong. But if somebody is bringing that aggression to you, then don't put up with it. You know, just hit them back. It's either that or go and tell the teacher about it. You know, but I think that's advice that most people would give to their kids. And I think again, it comes back to the fact that inherently people are generally good and they know the difference between right and wrong behavior. But as they go through society, they get programmed and conditioned to stray from these teachings. And that's where materialism comes in. It makes people selfish and greedy and competitive and out to do better than the next man, you know, and just out for themselves. And as people go through life, they lose their connectedness to these understandings that were there early on. I think that there's a lot that we can learn from the way we entrain kids in these matters at a very young age. If that makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of sense, and you know, and you know, even I remember when I was a kid in school, and you know, you know, somebody was bothering me, or and they insisted, and they got punched or whatever. That the teachers usually told me and other people as well, many other people as well. You know, I don't care who started it. You say, no, it was that guy that was bothering me, and I told him to stop, and he wouldn't do that, you know.
But just the way you reacted there is a natural way for people to react. If somebody is impinging on your rights, then it's natural and instinctive for you to defend yourself and lash out at them and make it clear that you're not going to put up with this. And,
exactly.
and you know, your behavior right there indicates this. It's part of us. It's inbuilt into our
exactly, and that's what that's what they want to extract away from us. You know, they say, no, I don't care who started. That's violence, and it's always wrong.
Yeah, they say it doesn't matter who started it. Yes, it does.
Yeah,
because the person that instigated the violence was in the wrong. Whoever instigates it is in the wrong.
Yeah, when they tell you that, it doesn't matter. That's part of that negative knowledge, like you mentioned, Nathan. That's part of the negative knowledge they're running on. That needs to be taken out for the proper knowledge of do no harm, take no shit, to be there. And yeah, we've heard that Passio give that example, you know, that if he's there and he sees a guy knocked on his ass, be like, who started it? He did? Well, you got what you deserved. And that's it. Simple. Like I said before, you know, if a guy squished by a tree, we're like, what happened here? Well, they were trying to knock down that tree and the tree fell on him and squashed him. Well, he got what he deserved. Don't fuck with the tree, you know?
Yeah, we are allowing the spraying of our skies, and God knows what else in the atmosphere. The Earth is gonna kick our ass out of this freaking planet and get us all extinct. We got what we deserved, I say.
Yeah, well, sadly, yep.
I think.
Hey guys, Sorry,
go on, Mark. Go on, Mark.
Yeah, Mark. I think Mark has some time, some time limits. Some.
Oh well, no worries.
Okay.
I just wanted to throw a question in there for you guys, because I'd be very interested in your responses to this. It's like a moral sort of dilemma or quandary, I guess. Now, if you found yourself armed, you're carrying a gun, and in front of you is another guy who's got a gun to another man's head, and he's threatening to shoot him. Would you say that you are within your rights to shoot the guy with the gun that is about to kill the other guy? So this isn't self-defense in that the danger and the harm is not about to befall you, but it's about to befall this other guy. Would you say that you have a moral right to stop this guy from shooting the other one?
Well, yes, I do, because it's defense is not only for yourself, but it's also defense of a third party or of other people.
Right.
I think it's very important to know the background there, to make sure that the guy that's having a gun pointed at him didn't actually start it and perform a theft of some sort. So if you're 100% sure that it's an unprovoked threat of violence, then I mean, it would be a horrible situation to be in. but you would be totally within your rights to blow that guy away. That'd be one less psychopath the world has to worry about, and you just save someone's life.
Yeah, see, I agree with Nathan there, because there are different variables. If you just show up there and this is what you see, yeah, it's hard to, to say what, because I saw a video recently where they had a former military guy was home on vacation or something, and he was with his girlfriend and a friend, and this other guy showed up with a gun, and this guy, being military, was able to disarm the guy, take the gun away, and hold him at gunpoint. So the police arrived, and then the police show up, and the guy with the gun they thought was a bad guy, and they end up arresting him and treating him like the criminal. See, so it's like, yeah, it's very again, that's a mix of bullshit man's law and legalese and stuff. Again, there's a lot of variables to take into consideration.
Yeah, but
those scenarios.
Yeah, I've decided to kept it simple, because I think it's kind of it's better if you state things, in a clear and simple way for people, because when you, it's like kind of like when you get to the various ifs, what if, people will go.
Well, I was interested to ask the question because these are themes that crop up in my novel, The Cause and the Cure, where you've got the perpetrator is going around killing people that he feels are putting harm into the world. And there's a discussion that takes place later in the book with another character who's saying you didn't have the right to kill these people because they weren't instigating harm against you personally. And so it's like a moral dilemma that gets discussed. And I was just interested in what people would say about that kind of scenario.
No,
I guess it does depend on the circumstances.
Yeah. Of course, there are many examples that one can make, but as a general rule, it's not only about yourself. When you see an aggression, and I'm talking about an act of aggression, violating an act of violence, so violating somebody else's rights. Of course, even if you are not involved personally, but you can stop that from happening. You have a right to do that. You have a right to stop the violence, even if it's not against yourself directly. But of course,
so. Yeah.
At this point, I'd like to talk about the need for unity among the various, because they've created. I don't know if it was if it was all on purpose or some of it was genuine, but it seems that there were all these various anarchist currents popped up in the in the world. You have all this anarcho this, anarcho that, and those other people say that no, you're not real anarchists. We are real anarchists. You're not real anarchists. So there seems to be quite an urgent need for unity in the people that call themselves anarchists.
Yeah, and it needs to be founded in natural law rhetoric, like we've been talking about. Anarchists. Anarchists need to go all the way and become vegan, and vegans need to go all the way and become anarchists. Under true natural law philosophy.
And anarcho-capitalists need to go all the way to just being anarchists and kind of see the truth behind this whole capitalist thing. Is still a form of enslavement. If you don't deal with this proxy system, then you don't get to eat or whatever. That's another form of control over someone. And
exactly, I was referring basically to the various currents. I didn't want to name them because but anyway,
we'll throw it out there. We'll put it out there.
We're
American, we got balls. Fuck it. Sorry.
No, but just because people will get all sorts of confusion, etc. But anyway, yes, anarcho-capitalism is one, especially in America. Over here is more, you have these fake anarchists, that are actually Marxist or communist.
My freedom movement, freedom movement too.
People that think that that only care for their own rights, but they don't care for the rights of people on the other side of the world.
It's all very tribal, isn't it? The way people like to identify themselves with groups. So at Anarchapulco this year in February in Mexico, which I was at, you had one aspect of the conference which was all about cryptocurrency. And the people that attended that were just so into that subject and didn't really care to learn about human freedom and natural law and all this. And then you had people that were into all that stuff that didn't really care for the crypto side of things. And people just seem to gravitate towards these groups, and they identify themselves with different labels. And really what it should always be about is just people living as free, sovereign beings. You don't need tribes. You don't need groups. You're going to find some compatibility and some kinship with other people, sure. But, all these groups and all these associations are really unnecessary. When you take on a full understanding of what true human freedom is and what personal sovereignty is, you don't need to belong to groups, because you can make it on your own. You have friends and associates, but the groups and the tribes and the labels just become so unnecessary.
I think that feed into the ruling classes divide and conquer, right? It's kind of like, hey, wait a minute, I think there might be some divide and conquer. There's an agenda here.
Exactly. And I think the whole thing, one of these things is, anarcho-capitalism versus anarcho-communism. No, communism is actually the real anarchy. No, capitalism, money, so you can be rich and free. And then another one, I think, it's anarcho-primitivism. Just to throw another one.
I've heard of that one.
You don't have
primitivism.
Yeah, primitivism. So
Okay.
they are against all type of technology, because technology.
Live in a cabin in the woods.
Right.
Yeah, or in a cave, maybe even. I don't know. I might be wrong, but that could play a little bit in the whole agenda 21/2030 whatever, because you have the higher technocratic class, the techno sorcerers, with all the power, because they use technology for evil deeds to control like sort of a Hunger Games scenario, to control the underdeveloped slave class that hasn't got any technology. So they can't even use it to defend themselves against the technocrats. So that
So this is going into, this is opening up another little door, if you've got time for it, Mark. But this is where we're at as a species being ruled, because we can't utilize free energy, we can't utilize hemp, and all of these types of things. And if we were truly free and we had order and prosperity under natural law, aligning with natural law, because we know that's the right thing to do. I think where we would be with Tesla technology, which was over 100 years ago now. And this is the mindset of the dominator, or in that slave think. We're retarded as a species, and I'll use that word correct. We know that triggered some people in Ireland, didn't we? But we're slowed down with this thinking. We could be so much further ahead, utilizing technology for really good purposes. We could all be spending a lot less time earning our slave tokens. So yeah, this is where it's got us ignoring what rights really are.
Yeah. In fact,
you make me think of balance. You bring, hearing you talk right now, speak, brings up balance and that either or mentality. Technology either is all good and we have to go via a Venus project way of, everything's technological and put all our power and futures in technology, or we go to that primitive thing like, no, technology is bad, we got to give it all up and go back to, living in huts. And no, it's a balance. It's a responsibility, of utilizing technology in a way where it's an alignment with natural law of doing no harm and taking no shit. It's like, wait a minute, we do no harm where this technology doesn't put out 5G radiation or cause, using nanotechnology or GMO stuff that harms the body. However, using technology in a way where we have an abundance of food, we have an abundance of energy, clean energy that doesn't harm humanity or any living beings or the planet. See, there's a balance that has to be attained there. Yep. But what's the threat here? It's not profitable to do that. So that's the killer right there, that that's our biggest slave master, money, this belief in money, and everything else stems from that. As long as money and all this, profit stays on top, doing the right thing, which is probably, we all agree, do the right thing, that doesn't stand a chance. Again, because of the programming, the first thing, how people are thinking, so.
Yeah, money. And well, who would build the roads, guys? Well, fuck the roads. We'd be in flying cars by now if we didn't have government anyway.
Yeah, that's what I like to always say to people when people say, "Oh well, how could we regulate the economy?" Dude, you're talking about a completely fake paradigm there. The economy that's all fake, and plus, I know it sounds bad to say it in this way, but I don't really care. Who cares? I'd be free. Who cares?
Who will build the roads? You always get that one. It's like, let's have true freedom and true personal sovereignty and anarchy. But who would build the roads?
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, you're right. Forget it.
Who would build the roads? The
We would.
people who build the roads. It's not government people that build the roads. Allegedly government people, or the government takes the money from the people and pays other people that build the roads. See, so there's, again, people don't think.
I feel we would get by. I think we'd probably find a way.
Just okay,
Humans do what needs to be done. A group of humans, if a road needs to be built, we want to get to the next village or whatever, we'll get on and build a road. And nowadays we've got crowdfunding and all that kind of stuff. Well, Trump was looking to crowdfund the freaking wall, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So we could do that.
Yeah, now crowdfunding your own slavery and your own police panopticon state.
It's called taxes.
Yeah, exactly. So to close this point off, so we need unity among people that call themselves anarchists. Anarchy is not about being this or that. It's about respecting, knowing what a right is, knowing what wrong is, respecting, moral law or natural law. And that's it, do no harm.
It's the most virtuous way to live, isn't it?
Exactly.
And yet people have been entrained to think of it as a really bad thing.
Yeah.
And yet it's the natural state for humans to be living.
To be free.
That's aligning to truth. That's the truth right here. We would think, right? We're speaking truth when it comes to freedom and moral law and all this stuff. It's aligning to truth, and that's that's the direction we need to go to. And everyone's not there. When we talk about all this divide and conquer, I have my truth. No, you have your truth. No, that's, again, divide and conquer. No one's aligning to the truth that is, and that's why we have everyone all over the place and at each other's throats.
Yeah, and if you really think about it, if you have a free and anarchist free society, then there's really room for everyone. If you want to live, if you want to live, in common with other people, everybody is living in the same place, sharing everything among each other or whatever. The non-proprietarian way, we'll talk about that in a second. You can, because society is free and moral. If people want to keep if you want to live alone in the woods, guess what? They can, because as long as they don't hurt others, you can do it. That's the main point. You don't hurt others, and then as Passio says, the sky's the limit. Then there's room for every way of life. That's what I say.
I want to plug in here. This ties in that I was talking about balance as far as technology goes. You said a commune. You have technology with some safe frequencies, not the Mark Devlin, the 422 hertz or whatever. Those cell frequencies that disrupt our bodies and all this stuff. You have safe frequencies, that way people in these communes, they can have whatever type of cell phone or communication device out in the middle of nowhere via satellite, that if they are in an emergency, they can reach out to someone and emergency services come to them, or the individual by himself, but not have it where it's daddy state, constantly monitoring, what are you doing? That's the negative effect of the technology. See, so again, bringing things down to a balance where when you want it, it's there for positive, purpose, instead of the negative purpose that we're all living under now. Everything, all this technology is watching everything you do to control us and keep an eye on us, where, in a society like you're talking about, people can use that for, emergency purposes,
Ivan, I know you're a movie buff. Did you ever see the film Leave No Trace that came out last year?
Did I do that one? I think I did. Is that the one with the guy, the father with the daughter, living out in the woods?
It's a guy who's ex-military, and he's got his teenage daughter, and they live out in the woods in Washington State somewhere. Right. And they've got this perfectly happy existence where they live in a shack and they collect rainwater and grow their own vegetables and all this. But the authorities come down on them, and they get alerted to the fact they're living this way. And they say, no, you've got to integrate into society, come into the city. You can't live like this. And so they go up against the authorities in terms of wanting to live freely in this way. So very great movie.
Yeah. Bring the girl into the indoctrination system because she's not being indoctrinated, put her into the school system. Yep. And in fact, they try to give the guy employment, give him a job and stuff. But,
they're forcing him to cooperate with organized society, and he just doesn't want to do it. Exactly.
Yeah, so...
Sounds like a good movie. I'll check that out.
It's worth checking, yeah. Leave No Trace.
Yeah, sure.
Right. The ending was kind of like, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, again, that shows the anarchy thing. See how everyone else talks about freedom, but when it comes to implementation, cognitive dissonance going on. You have to submit to the way things are. This is how we do things. But we're free, and we voted for it. So it's like, a lot of BS going around.
Yeah, and a concept that I would like to clarify also is the concept of property, because one of the big divisions among anarchists is I don't know if you heard about it, but the proprietarians and non-proprietarians. So the ones that are against the concept of that don't recognize as valid the concept of property, because they consider it, I guess, capitalist or whatever. I think they're referring in particular to private property. I don't know what's their understanding of property in general, but I think they're referring to the idea of people owning things and making others pay to get an essential service or something. If you
I
want,
think that stems. I think I would suggest that stems from part of the sophistry or the sorcery. That you own something. It's mine. It's yours. You have it either legally. It was signed by deed, or through money you work for and you own that. Again, that's, I think, part of the mind control. Because I attempt not to look at owning all this stuff I have, the camera and all that. It's more like a stewardship. We're not here for all eternity. We're here for that, small little 50, 80 years, whatever. And in that time, we're stewards of whatever we have in our possession, be it the home, be it the material stuff, even our bodies. So when it comes to property, that's probably mine. It's like renting, for the time being right now. Yeah, this is my responsibility. I'm responsible for this. I'm utilizing this. And then there might come a time where it gets passed on to another family member or someone else, and it's theirs. So when it comes to property and ownership, I think that's another part of that sorcery thing. It almost opens a door to Satanism, selfishness, mine, my body, my house, my car, my clothing, wait a minute, that kind of enforces that, whereas if it's, people get that mindset of, I'm just borrowing this. While I'm here, I'm in stewardship of this home, this material stuff and all this stuff. See, it kind of lessens the tension when you're, thinking about mine and somebody's out to take my stuff and I got to protect it against them. And, you get all you let go of all that tension and all that emotional connection when you think, well, for the time being, I'm here, I'm borrowing this and that's it. And it's mellowed people out, That's how I see it.
You've got to be sensible about it, because if you've got a home where you house your family and your kids are asleep and it's your duty as a parent to take care of your kids, and someone comes in the middle of the night and says, hey man, you got no right to be in this place, you got no more right than me, I want to sleep here tonight. Well, your duty is to keep your kids safe, and you don't want some stranger coming in that you don't know. It's not a good idea. So you are going to have to assert the fact that this place where you are is yours for this time, and you need it to take care of your family. And this guy doesn't have the right that he might think to just come marching in and take it over. You know, a sensible approach like that is required.
Yeah,
I don't think the guy I wouldn't have even got as far as having a conversation with someone that's coming into my house at night and have got a freaking knife in the neck, you know?
yeah, but
Not the best of times for conversations. Yeah.
Don't take what I'm saying the wrong way. It's not like I sleep and I have a particular personal defense tool by my bed that if someone does enter without permission, they will not be met with applicable force. It's not like I'm saying anybody and everybody come on in, whatever. Like I said, hey, I'm in stewardship for this home. The thing is, why don't we need to expand that consciousness of, if someone is coming around like, hey, I need to get in here, whatever. Well, what's going on? What is the situation that you don't have access to your own place? How can we remedy that? What's going on? You're not employed. Can we help you out? Do we have a friend? There are different ways to address that. But then again, in this society, being a satanic society, it's all about me. You're a threat to me. F you, get out of here. I don't want to deal with this. It's your problem. And that, again, is part of the foundation that keeps everyone at each other's throats.
Yeah. So you'd say there is a place for, obviously there's a controlled dialectic, as you were pointing out, of what property is, but is there an actual, is there such a thing as, your property, whether
of course,
as a spiritual general concept? Is there a place for property, even personal property, in a free anarchist society?
Of course, there has to be.
Yeah.
We need to know what we own and what we don't own. But this is certainly in the New Age community and Buddhism to a degree as well. This the fact that you never really own anything, nothing's ever yours. Yeah, like Ivan was saying, I understand that this is a temporary experience, but whilst I'm here in this it's a physical realm with physical things, things I've bought, things I use, they're mine, and we need to understand that. I think, there could be a discussion here about greed and people that own like 24 houses, for example, and they're all empty. And that type of thing. That's not, especially when there's homeless people, and because we're not living in a civilized society at all with all of the homeless people and all of the empty houses and all that kind of stuff. So there needs to be reason. So that's I guess a topic that would need exploring a little bit deeper. Things like that when it's excess. Especially when it could be alleviating suffering for other humans, But I think if we do open up our hearts and get our minds right, and align with natural law, I think it creates more empathy. Like Ivan was saying, we're in a satanic society. There's little empathy. Everyone's kind of just me and my own, not really expanding any further than that. So I think Tesla, there's I'm not going to get the quote right off the bat, but he's saying, what we need is a universal enlightenment, and closer connections with people, and that is natural law, and I think it would create more empathy in society anyway. So yes,
yeah. So basically, what I'm seeing, going on right now, it's usually the proprietarian or whatever, the anarcho-capitalist, let's say, is also, as Ivan was saying, is afraid. It's in the mentality that, oh my God, people are gonna take my stuff that I worked really hard for. without deserving it, without doing anything. I have to protect from that. And the others are more in the mindset of, okay, if the rich capitalist, the greedy capitalist builds the well in the middle of the town, and then he privatize it, and he's gonna make poor people pay to get the water, and they're gonna die of thirst. So that they have all these fears. So they have every encampment has its own fears. But I'd say they are talking about the current society. They are not talking about what will happen in a truly free society. They are talking about a paradigm where morality doesn't exist because the people are still immoral. So these things, these fears are fueled by the fact that that you're talking about immoral people. You're not talking about a situation where morality is present and understood.
I think we also need
by most people. So
I think we also need to realize that there's a lot of scarcity-based mind control going on. With water, oil, electric, and all the rest of it. And if we were truly free, that wouldn't exist, because we would be using free energy. We'd be using things like hemp. So the people's minds would change a lot. Coming out of this scarcity base, because there's so much fear, and we're so restricted and into just worrying about and people are in society, and most people are on the breadline. But that would all change. But we're just so deep into this, and most people are a million miles away from really deeply understanding this.
What I hear. This is how I can simplify it. You see my two fingers right here? You have the haves and the haves not. Yet the one thing they both have in common is fear. The have-nots fear that they don't have what the haves do, and the haves fear of losing what they have to the have-not. See, so again, where does that meet? The balance. Again, everything comes down to balance, fear, people taking all these things in and properly, applying that trivium, grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Take this information as like, wait, we really are all afraid. Wait, yeah, we do live in an imbalanced world. Everybody's for me. Wait, see, so all these little variables come in there, and people start working through this stuff and start seeing, it's not about poor versus rich, and it's all this fear that there's all these variables that once you stand back and put everything in proper, align yourself to the truth of this, like, oh, I see what's going on. Did that make sense? Kind of?
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, sure.
I'd like to clarify on the balance thing. So I had this. I'm sure you know this anyway, Ivan. But people use that as an excuse to do wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all about balance. Oh, a little bit won't, a little bit. But no, evil is wrong, and it's a choice. We always have the choice, the free will choice to make decisions. So, that anyway. I just thought I'd clarify that for the podcast.
Sure. Right.
I'm gonna have to dive off in a second, guys. I hate to bail out, but I've got parental duty calling in the background, so you'll probably want to continue the conversation, but I'll have to dive off in a couple of minutes. I'm really sorry to have to do that, but
okay, so
that's life.
Perfectly understandable.
We're talking about duty and responsibility to creation here, and there's an example of it beckoning in the background for me.
Okay, so do you want
joining us, Mark?
Sorry, mate.
Thanks for joining us, buddy. It's always good.
No worries. We had a great conversation.
Thanks indeed. And maybe do you want to say how people can find your work online if they're interested?
Sure. Well, my work is all findable at markdevlin.co.uk, and on YouTube I'm on there as Mark Devlin TV. The thing I'm most excited about at the moment is the imminent arrival of my novel that I mentioned, The Cause and the Cure. It's the first piece of fiction that I've written. I'm getting the proof copy on Monday, so very exciting times. That means in a couple of weeks it'll be on the streets. And in the narrative of this book, I've explored a lot of the themes and the topics we've spoken about this evening. It is rooted in natural law teachings and spiritual doctrines. And on the surface of it, it's a crime thriller, but that's to draw readers in and hopefully engage them with, a thrilling story. But if they can read beneath the surface narrative and peel away some of the layers, I've coded a lot of symbolism in there and a lot of metaphors and a lot of allegory. I've had an absolute blast writing it. I've really loved the experience, and I can't wait to unleash it on people, because I think it's a great way of getting these teachings across where people aren't necessarily expecting it. So I hope that people are going to buy it thinking, oh, this looks interesting. It's set in Oxford in 1990 and it's a crime thriller. It's probably like Inspector Morse. But if they read it properly, they're going to have all sorts of stuff just jumping out at them that they weren't expecting. So I think it's a really great way to get the information across. So I'm looking forward to that drop in, The Cause and the Cure.
And what sparked my interest was also the soundtrack that you put on your Spreaker page.
Yes. That's the DJ in me. I don't get to DJ much these days. I don't get booked anymore. I can't think why. Is it something I said?
Nah.
But, those tendencies are still in me. It's
Okay.
probably the first novel to come with its own soundtrack, to be honest.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's like a movie style soundtrack, only it's a book.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So,
all right, guys. Well, I've really enjoyed being with you this evening. I hope you'll continue the conversation. I'm sorry I have to jump ship now, but we had a great chat.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
All the best to you.
All right.
Okay. You too, man. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Did you have any questions left, Francesco? I know you had a list you shared with me yesterday.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. I don't know how much time you guys...
Someone got tipped off, did they?
Sorry?
So someone got tipped off. I didn't get any tip-offs.
Yeah. Somebody cheated.
Oops.
Yeah, the fact of property and cooperation. I will write that down. Because as I said, I'm against all this labeling, all these labels of anarchy, all this anarcho-capitalist, anarcho-communist. For me, these are all fake. This is all fake. It's all a divide and conquer idea, a divide and conquer strategy.
Right. You're talking cooperation, Nathan. Agorism, is that something that cooperation and agorism?
Voluntarism. I guess about the anarcho-capitalism and crypto stuff. None of it, as long as it's based, as long as it's a predominantly natural law rhetoric, as long as there's no harm being done, then people can do what they want. And I think there would be cooperation if we are truly free and say most people are armed and something goes down. We as humans do help each other. If there's car accidents or someone's out at sea and can't swim, we get together. This is the true human nature, but that's been obfuscated from us because we're drip fed that we're all evil and all of that nonsense.
Right. Every time Mark, before he left, I should have brought this up for him, but there were a couple of times in our conversation here that he brought up about humanity having this goodness kind of inherent in us. And I couldn't help but keep thinking about that, how that correlates to creation, that love is the expansive force. Everything in life is a result of the expansive force of love. Yeah. So if we are born of that, even if it's the worst case scenario, how people say, well, what about a rape incident? And no, that child was born in violence and evil, all that. No, well, the act itself or the expansive force, that's part of love. That's a life created. So that's why inherently as children, we are closest when we're youngest to our point of origin to love, to the expansive force. That's why everything, the goodness of people is more noticeable there, as opposed to 10, 20 years down the road, once all the indoctrination, all the negative knowledge has been put in and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, agape, right? Love of all things
Yes,
good.
agape, right.
Yeah, and I really think that, you know, the meat industry or government, you know, the dark occult priest class, along with authoritarianism, you know, kids know this. You know, I certainly was questioning things when I was a kid. You know, oh, but we're men and love animals. You know, do we need to eat? But there's more information in society now, so we know that it's not necessary. But I think people, and certainly children, would be in a state of duality. You know, they're told one thing, but then society is actually behaving in a different way.
Mhm.
So that's where the dualism comes in. You know, but we love animals, but we eat them. Do no harm, but we've got authority. You know, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I was going a bit further with that, and I just lost my train of thought.
Because I was talking about love being the expansive force, and anarchy, no masters, no rulers. That's pretty much a form of love, where it's like you love yourself, you love others. I'm free and an individual. And I haven't touched on this. I know, Francesco, you in the beginning you dropped these two words. In some of my work, what little it is, I always bring up, people talk about freedom and rarely comprehend that that's two words put together: free, dominion. And then how that's I think the beginning part of it, but that's not the end, because you can have free dominion and do all the evil in the world. You need to have wise dominion, wisdom, in order to bring everything together, which
Nice.
is, again, performing in balance or in harmony with creation, with love, that you're wisely taking actions that benefit or create more freedom, free dominion for yourself and others, everything. See, and that's all part how we, one rises, everything else rises, and it just keeps going up, that whole higher frequency, that elevation in consciousness. So the better the free dominion, the better the wise dominion, everything becomes, that's how we escape this prison planet. And while everyone thinks they're free dominion to do what they want, rape, pillage, plunder, steal, charge $1 billion for whatever, they're not exercising wise dominion. And I think, that's something that's sorely missing when we talk about anarchy and freedom and all this stuff. It's like, nah, it's not as simple as just anarchy, do whatever you want.
Yeah. And as morality increases, as does freedom.
Exactly.
So you said that really well. That was cool. Yeah. And love yourself enough to not be dominated, and also have the expansive love to not want to dominate any other being as well.
Correct. Exactly. That's what's missing when that's teachers that are needed, and the few of us that are there, it's difficult to convey this to people. That's like, no, I'm want to be free. I am a free individual, or anarchist, no masters, no rulers over me. However, you too, this is what you need to ingrain in yourself, that you are an anarchist. You have no masters, rulers over yourself, and so do you, and you, and it has to spread, because that's part of that mental block that people have, is like, okay, I'm free, you're free, but who's going to decide this? Who's going to do that? You're starting to create that master thing, that we do this, but this person who's in charge of it, no, we're all responsible for ourselves. And this is where Francesco's last question or point comes up: cooperation, where it's all the individuals. See, all my little digits form the one hand. See, so each individual is part of the whole. And again, it's a lot of variables. It's simple, just not easy to get this across, to explain or open people's minds to this.
And I think people that have bought into the authoritarian, I think mostly left-brained, and like the egghead types, and they're sort of overthinking everything, overanalyzing it. Well, let's just stick to the basics, and it's going to be a hell of a lot better than what we've got at the moment,
Correct. I've said that, I think, in the one talk I've given, that proxyism talk, that everyone's looking for answers. What's something new we need to do? New this, do this, do this, do this. Well, maybe the solution is stop doing all this stuff. There's all these things that we say we got to keep doing to make things better, bring up something new, when it's no, you need to start taking away all these things we've been doing and strip it down to the bare minimum of what's true and what's the best, thing, revert back to a basic that's holistic, simple, and fruitful for everyone, instead of putting band-aid on top of band-aid on top of band-aid.
Yeah, that's one thing that I always say to even in the family. oh, you're talking all these things, then okay, what you would have us do, start a revolution, going on this. And I always say, well, if it will come to that, it's only because there's not a general understanding or comprehension that we actually need to stop doing what we are doing. Stop obeying. Stop paying your taxes. Stop feeding the beast, because the beast is still. We are constantly, you're constantly feeding this monster that is dominating and ruining us. We'll have to stop that. It's not really about doing, it's about stop doing. So it will be even, even more comfortable than actually doing things. Yeah.
Right. Let me bring something up here that, again, this ties the corporate finance area with the anarchy, what we've been talking about. And Nathan, I would ask this to you, or Francesco, both of you, but when we talk about anarchy, right, and that's no masters, no rulers, people tend to forget or don't associate that all this capitalist, materialistic, financial stuff, that's very anti-anarchist. And where I'm going with this is like with the big monster right now, Amazon. How everything on Amazon, you can get your food, your liquids, your material stuff, everything you can get from Amazon. And it always bugged me why they named it Amazon. And I'm thinking, man, because the Amazon, that's the most abundant kind of place you want to be, right? Amazon, you got constant
lungs of the earth.
Yeah, exactly. You got the trees, you got the air, you got the waters, everything. So Amazon, so subliminally, humanity's being pushed into this artificial realm on the internet, that everything for sustainability for life is at the Amazon, on Amazon. All the music, videos, and games, everything we want, we can get from there. All the food, clothing, shelter, everything you want is from there. And that's, like, oh, wait, look, we're free. We can get all that. Like, that's an artificial hijacking, I think, of like what anarchy, detachment, no masters, no rulers. That's going right out the window when everything they want and need, they get from the Amazon, the artificial one. You kind of see that?
Could be, it could be, this is going to tie in with something you said earlier, actually, but playing on our primal, our sort of ancient past, where that was, like I say, our abundance, our home. Whereas George Bush would flip it round at the law of the jungle, and right, with playing on our primal fears, the darkness, the predators, and chaos, and all the rest of it. That's an interesting point there about Amazon.
Yeah. I see the point, and I agree, actually, and that probably will get us into the question you talk about, the capitalist mindset, the capitalist system. So, it's based on, money, profit, and this thing about, money that, people, in the mind of people, even people who believe, who believe in the Christian God or whatever, they actually, I think they actually think that money came even before God, in a way.
So wasn't it in the 50s that was part of the mind control, that money, the U.S. money, didn't always say "in God we trust"? It was redeemable and whatever, gold backing, whatever.
Yeah.
It was in the 50s or so that they started putting "in God we trust" to start pushing more of that Christian religious kind of thing. And now everybody, see, it's in our money, in God we trust. See, God, money, money. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, it's kind of the normalcy. So my question was, does money have a place in an anarchist, that is in a truly free society?
Okay. Well, I was just about to talk about this, actually. So, a timely question. There's nothing inherently evil with money. It's like there's nothing inherently evil with any inanimate object. It's the consciousness of the user, right? And that's the problem, and it's the consciousness of our collective consciousness is awry. And how the money controllers, and they're using it for their benefit, and they're just fabricating more and more money out of thin air all the time. So it's not inherently evil. It's consciousness of the people that are using it, and how it's the whole system that's wrong. You know, because if people, I liken it to playing Monopoly. You know, would you play Monopoly if you knew the banker was cheating? Obviously you wouldn't, but we're forced to play the game. So as a means of exchange, you know, because obviously money came about because, you know, there were the difficulties. I want to swap my melons for your pineapples, but actually, no, you don't like melons, but I've only got, okay, I'll give you 100 melons. I just want a pineapple. No. So, you know, as a form of exchange, you know, gold coins or matchsticks, whatever, it's not inherently evil. So that there can be a place for it, but it needs to be fair.
Well, obviously, you know, bringing that up to me with my proxyism thing. Yeah, I think it's like everything else, that progression of consciousness. Humanity's at a stage where, yeah, consciously they cannot interact or cooperate without some form of proxyism, like a money exchange. Well, so many lemons for these apples, or you know, a goat or a cow is not the same value. It's okay, yes. So for now, that's where they're at consciously. That's would be my argument. Consciously, where we're at now, yes, some kind of financial interaction, monetary thing, proxy. However, yeah, once, hopefully, if a level of consciousness is attained where it's like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You need the lemon, you need the lime, or the apple. Fine. I need, you know, whatever part of the wood for this home. Fine. The value, just because the size and the this or the ink, you know, it's uncomfortable to carry this around. All that starts going away, where it's like just that love of life to exist, to function, to move on, to evolve. What's necessary? This little thing, fine, it's done. This huge thing, fine, it's done. So once a level of consciousness is attained where the perceived monetary value due to the size or value, you know, a car because it's a Volkswagen or Chevy as opposed to a Mercedes or BMW, those are all mental constructs. So a mode of transport is what's necessary. That's it. You know, when our consciousness reaches a state, you know, level that all these little minuscule things of dividing rich, poor, that's what creates all that. That's I think, you know, when we can do away with that. But you know, that I agree with you that, yeah, inherently in itself, money is not evil. However, with the current consciousness of people, there's a lot of evil being perpetrated, you know, on behalf of money, you know, like selfishness. I'll do this, let those starving people in third world countries, oh well, go work for Amazon or you know, Google or whatever. No, that's creating evil.
I think what is interesting as well is the, you know, phonetically mono-I. It sounds like mono-I, and you know what? So and then that would be knowledge of natural law, right? So they've given it to us as a proxy, and everything in society is kind of diverting you away from knowledge of self and knowledge of natural law. So they've given us mono-I to chase, where we spend most of our time and energy collectively as a species, chasing paper money, fake fiat paper slave tokens and digits on a screen. You know, it's a scam. It's the biggest scam going. It's the biggest religion in the world because most people believe in it.
There's also the fact that you have to, if you don't have it, you run the risk of dying, actually.
Yeah, because you can't heat your home because that's scarcity, because we're not free. Yeah.
So that for me is the big problem. You know, if you don't, like Max Sigan says, you know, why do I have to pay to be alive?
Right.
Why do I have to pay
that's
to
a
be
phrase
alive?
that's a phrase that, again, if you just, anyone with a little bit of, you know, critical thinking, be like, the cost of living. Well, that's the cost of living. The cost of living just went up. Like, anyway, listen to what living. So to be alive has a cost to it. You know, see, so I don't know. It's all part of that sophistry, the mind control.
Yeah, it doesn't exist in nature, does it? You know, you can't eat money itself. You can't shelter yourself. You can't defend yourself with money itself. Well, I guess if you threw enough money at someone, it might work. But it is a big part of the problem in the current condition. But yeah, like we said, it's not inherently evil.
yeah, I say, it has been, I think, we need to get to a level of consciousness, like Avan was saying, where we don't need it, where we don't use it anymore. But I think, a good point from where we can start, apart from exposing the fact that it's, debt based and all the stuff that it's fake anyway. Debt, national debt that doesn't exist. It's a fakery, complete fakery. But I think,
this takes us back to something we mentioned earlier, Francesco, with the education, with knowledge, the teaching, of people not knowing, not only the anarchy, no masters, no rulers thing, but again, money, that's a control mechanism. You actually need the home. We come together, get you the home. You need a mode of transport. We come together, you get the mode of transport, the food, clothing, and shelter. So that's part of the programming. The belief in government. Oh, these people tell you what you can and can't do. All these are different. Like if we were to say have a, how you have school, you have your morning class, it's whatever, your homeroom, then you have a history class, a math class, a science class. Well, in the freedom movement, quote unquote freedom, anarchists or natural law thing, each class you break down all these different beliefs, deconstructing religion, deconstructing, government, deconstructing finance, getting to the truth of things. Like all these are the different mechanisms of mind control to keep everyone enslaved, and deconstructing them, liberates humanity in this method, in this way, and in all these kind of areas. So again, everything's connected. All the enslavement parts can be taken apart, pin by linchpin, to free people, to lead to a truly anarchist free society, where you don't need to be eating meat, you don't need to be using money, you don't need to be believing in government, you don't need to be believing in false religions. See, so all these things, again, not doing new things, getting rid of all the things that have been keeping humanity down for centuries.
For me the biggest thing is, as I said, if we still have to need to need money to be able to live, to survive, to be alive, that's the problem. That we have to get away from that, guys. I think that's the most important thing to understand. Then that's why I kind of like the agorist mindset, that you have a free marketplace, in the sense of free interactions between free people, where you can apart from you have options. Like if you want to exchange something, you can you can offer, you can barter it, you can gift it, or you can have some form of medium of exchange, let's say some form of money to do that. But it's not that you're forced to do that. And that could be a good starting point from me. That's why one guy that I would have liked to have, maybe that would have been interesting, would have been Derek Bros. I don't know if you guys.
That's funny you mentioned Derek Bros, because Derek Bros is part like Mexican and Native American.
Yeah.
And as you were speaking, I was just thinking about Native Americans. The whole concept when the white man came was like, oh, we can offer you money and buy this land and buy this and buy that. And Native Americans were like, we don't believe in ownership. Pay for this, own that. No, we just utilize what's necessary and share, and again, live in balance and harmony with nature. That's kind of what you're talking about with agorism. It's like, get to that thing, deprogram us to where it's like, well, what do you need? What's necessary to live? This. Okay, well, there it is. Do we need this? Well, do you want that or do you need that? Well, I want it. Well, okay, that's part of the mind control. Well, you know what? I really don't need that. And again, that's the disconnect from nature. Native Americans were more connected with nature than other cultures. See, so I think we're along the right path. But then you get the argument of like, well, but they wouldn't have advanced. Look at all the materialistic advancements in technology and all that stuff. That's a different path to go to. However, the way the Native Americans or indigenous cultures were living, weren't causing a threat to global, existence, or, what is it, creating pollution and all this catastrophic kind of earth changing no, they were in harmony with the earth. So is all this advancement in technology and science and chemical stuff a positive in that sense or a negative? See, so again, it's like, not to shit all over all that stuff. Again, like I said, living in harmony, bringing things in balance, and technology, science, and all that has been in an abusive path. And, so.
Yeah.
So I was just going to say that I think that the big problem as well is the way it's going, and with the cashless society. But money's totally built into the control system network, and you've got to get a job, and to have a job you need to have an address and a bank account, and now you're paying taxes, and you're completely you bound.
The matrix has you.
Yeah, exactly. But if we, at least with cash, we've got a modicum of and I say a modicum of freedom, but as soon as it goes completely cashless, then if you imagine it, how China's going with the social credit system, and all of the people that have been restricted for travel because
that's coming too, by the way.
Yeah, man, exactly. And then it goes cashless, and as soon as you start speaking out against the state, and you can't use your bank card, and then you're completely screwed. So this is where we're going, and people, like Mark was saying, what's it going to take? How much suffering, how much of this paedophilia in your faces are we going to take before we actually decide to stand up and get off of our ass and have the love and the self-respect to not be dominated like we've been talking about.
Two things real quick right there, what we're talking about, Nathan. One thing that came to mind was, like David Icke says, the totalitarian tiptoe. That's why people aren't going to rebel or argue.
The frog in the water,
little by little, the frog in the boiling water, right? And then second, I hope I didn't lose my train of thought here. Damn, where is it? Come here. Where are you? Oh man. Okay, one was David Icke thing, and then anarchy. No masters, no rulers. Right? We keep repeating that. People tend to get stuck on anarchy means no government master or ruler. It's not only a governmental or political master or ruler. It's every kind of master or ruler. So when you talk about China having these social kind of, you can do this or you can't do that, that's another type of anarchy that needs to be achieved, where the social networks aren't your masters. You see, so it's not just the government, DC or London and all this stuff. No, there's other areas, other types of masters that people need to break free from. The financial masters, the social masters, like you're talking about China with all this. If you don't do this, if you show anti, resentment, negative kind of thing, all those are forms of masters. So again, a lot of different variables, a lot of different areas where people need to detach from, or let alone recognize and say, oh, this is a type of master: my financial master, political master, spiritual master, religious master, social master, all these kind of things. So anarchy applies to all of that, not just breaking free from Washington.
Master yourself, control yourself. Don't try and control other people.
Free dominion. Dominion as well. Rulership. Ruling yourself freely. Dominion, ruling yourself wisely. So I freely rule myself from government, but I still worship Amazon and the Federal Reserve and the Catholic Church and what the fuck are you talking about? You're not free. You're still bowing down to these guys. But DC, no, I don't believe in DC. Like, wait a minute, it covers all of them,
Yeah, and that's a good point, because there's also the theme of something that might sound strange, but the fact that the two important things, monarchy and anarchy. So we have to break down these two concepts, because why monarchy? Well, is it external monarchy, or is it internal monarchy? You ruling yourself. You be the sovereign, the king, the the head of state of yourself. You know,
Right. We've heard Passio break this down, how it's flipped. It's switched the other way. Well, isn't everything satanic, flipped upside down? We have external monarchy, one rulership outside, be it the government or church or the finance, and internally we have monarchy, no master, no ruler. We're like all over the place.
Anarchy.
It needs to flip. Where inside we need to be monarchy, one self, free dominion. You rule yourself. Externally have anarchy, no external rulers. See, so and that's the flip. That's where people are at.
Yeah, internal anarchy leads to external control. Yeah, or monarchy. Yeah, one rule.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that many some researcher, maybe who I'm talking about, but I don't think it's there are a few people think that anarchy is an internal state of being, but that's actually wrong, because then you'll get you'll get control from the outside, and that's slavery. You need to have internal monarchy, internal rulership.
Yeah.
And
what's right
in
and
that
wrong.
way you have
Accordingly.
external anarchy. So freedom, you'll have a free society.
Yeah, totally. And I don't think because I own my own business and I've got some staff, but so we could say there's an internal control system there, but I don't force anybody to work for me. It's on a voluntary basis. They've agreed to work for me for X amount of paper slave tokens, but it's a voluntary basis. Whereas obviously the money that government take off of everybody, that's through coercion.
Yeah, well, you're basically doing a cooperation. People are like, well, the way things are, we settle, we cooperate, and work together for everyone's mutual, necessity and whatnot.
Yeah,
exactly. There was something, just not to get negative here, but Nathan, behind you, that Anarchy logo, I think it was the same person that Francesco might be talking about. They kind of poo-pooed on anarchy, saying, well, if you look at the anarchy symbol, if you read it symbolically, it's just a hole. It's an A around a circle, a hole, so a hole. So that's what anarchists use as their logo. It's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Well,
I actually quite like the A with the heart. Have you seen that logo? Because it is love based as well, isn't it?
Right.
Having that internal dominion and not having external domination.
Love of it's not the new agey sort of love, or the physical love. It's actually the love of truth that we are talking about here.
Well, going back to agape, well, both of them start with an A.
Agape,
agape.
Right. Yeah. So does anybody? I think we've gone quite a.
Yeah, I need to use the loo, to be honest.
The loo, okay.
The gents, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, okay, I think I'm good.
Okay, yeah. So anybody has any closing, things that any closing thoughts?
It's been a really good talk. We've covered a lot of bases. I think we've covered a lot of the angles that most people, think about when anarchy is mentioned and the questions they have. I don't think I've got anything to add.
No, me neither. No, I think this is good. It's, if anything, it's good primer because it has a bit of everything for everyone. The initiate, the ones who don't know anything, we scratch the surface for them. Stuff like, well, they mentioned this word, they mentioned natural law, they broke down free dominion, they actually explain what anarchy is. Oh, maybe we need to look into this further. And the so-called already initiated ones, further down the path that have been going down maybe a convoluted path, maybe this is now some information for them to go back and contemplate what they have been processing and putting out or taking it for themselves. Be like, I never thought of it that way. Oh, this is where I was wrong. This is where, so maybe there's something for everyone here, and start new conversations, bringing everybody to align to truth.
Sure. So I just close saying we talk about natural law, moral law, universal laws, and I say, laws. These laws govern the entire universe without man. They are inherent in nature. Mm-hmm. So why the hell do we need man's law?
Right.
It's just a matter of recognizing these laws and living according to them. So I say that as my final statement.
Hear, hear.
Thanks for the invite, Francesco, and it's really cool to have the roundtable discussion with Ivan and Mark as well. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so Nathan, you have a YouTube channel, so people can find you there, Nathan Riddett, right?
Yeah, just type my name in. I've got a few videos up there now.
Okay, so and Ivan, you have a freeyourmindaz.com, your website, and your YouTube channel as well. So
the website Free Your Mind AZ, and I don't put too much stuff out myself. It's more like just a portal, just bringing people to where they can find other links to other people's works. And my YouTube, it's DTS51 Sound is the YouTube channel, my handle that I use, but all that's linked on the website, freeyourmindaz.com.
Okay, cool. So thank you, everybody. And also thanks to Mark Devlin that had to go away earlier. And enjoy the rest of your evening or day, and see you guys another time.
I don't care what you do, because you're not respecting us. This is not a court of law, as far as I'm concerned. No justice is being served here, and you still can't look me in the eye. And so I say, do what you want to do. Give me whatever time you want, because I'm not in your hands. I'm in God's hands.
I am a natural person with my God-given rights. I am free to determine how I shall live my life. I am not your property. I do not belong to you. You are not the boss of me. Don't tell me what I ought to do. Don't tell me what's illegal to do to my own self. If I want, I should be able to ruin my own health or take my own life. After all, it's only mine to lose. I'm not condoning it, but we should have the right to choose whatever we want, long as we not doing harm to others. This hypocritical justice system's a lot of rubbish. They make us swear on the Bible until the God above us, the same one who told his son to say you're not to judge us. Yet the law that does this is based on a religion that says the way for man to be like God is by forgiving. But still they fill the prisons, they quick to give us time. There ain't no justice when the punishment don't fit the crime. Yeah, I am leading the revolution of my spirit, body, and mind. Yeah, inside of me is a solution to any problem I find. I'm gonna love myself and take responsibility for my life, cause God gave me the liberty to live my life the way I think I ought to. Yeah, the definition of capitalize is to take advantage of. So the purpose of capitalism is to capitalize on us. They be capitalizing every single letter in our names. If you think it don't mean nothing, you better think again. Turn a person to a slave, a corporation to a person. They claim it's getting better as the situation worsens. They trying to prevent us, the 99%, from understanding that a natural person's rights are heaven sent. The rules and regulations that they make do not apply to us. They lie to us to try to justify the reasons why we must agree and follow. Even though our leaders' motto's obvious, they all about the dollars, yet they hollering in God we trust, pretending that they religious by reading passages from the Bible, all the while misleading the masses with their brainwashing tactics they using Jesus of Nazareth. Name in vain to claim they fame, these heathens speaking blasphemous. Yeah, I am leading the revolution of my spirit, body, and mind. Yeah, inside of me is a solution to any problem I find. I'm gonna love myself and take responsibility for my life, cause God gave me the liberty to live my life the way I think I ought to. Yeah, I am speaking on behalf of my people with no voice. Ain't no sovereignty or freedom, they leave us with no choice. Yet they claim it's liberty, but I say it's quite contrary. Take a look at history, you'll see that they ain't fighting fairly. Ain't no thinking differently, you gotta pay the price to vary. Tell me why the government doesn't give gays the right to marry. They got no right to tell you who you not allowed to love. I reiterate, religion states you're not allowed to judge. Yet these Christian politicians call us all a bunch of thugs. They hit us with a sentence for a small amount of drugs. It's funny how they keep liquor and tobacco legal, yet they take more lives together than ecstasy, crack, and needles. And the weed and shrooms that we consume are not actually lethal, but the government will ban it if they cannot tax the people. To me, the reason for the war on on drugs is more than obvious. They profiting by stopping us from exploring our consciousness. Yeah, I am leading the revolution of my spirit, body, and mind. Yeah, inside of me is a solution to any problem I find. I'm gonna love myself and take responsibility for my life, cause God gave me the liberty to live my life the way I think I